Hey everybody, my name is Emma, and today we have a little bit of an explanation of what our pigeon pose is. So, just a short and sweet one, but I know it's something that we often do through our flows. It's something that runners are always told is like, oh, you should try this, oh, you should try this, because it's super, super helpful for our glutes, for our hips, sometimes for those IT bands as well, if they're particularly twingy. So let's just take a moment to break it down and have a think about what we're really trying to achieve with this posture and how we can get the most from it. So, we're actually going to start not by doing a pigeon pose at all, but by doing something else in that's called a figure of four stretch on our backs. So from where you are, it doesn't matter if you don't have your mat right now. If you come onto your back and just bring both knees up, so they're kind of in this tabletop position, we're going to bring our right ankle and cross it in front of your left thigh. Now, don't worry if your hips maybe are a little bit tight right now, maybe you're kind of having to wiggle yourself to get here, that is okay. We're going to thread our hands through the back of this left thigh and then bring ourselves closer towards our knee, closer towards our chest. Now, what we should hopefully be feeling is a bit of a stretch through this right side glute here and possibly down into those hips, maybe down through the side of your thigh, maybe your lower back even can have a little bit of space. Keep drawing those knees closer towards your chest. And you can see you can get maybe a bit closer today than usual, maybe a little bit further away. Let's switch our legs over. So left ankle comes in front of right knee, hands are going behind our right thigh. We want to really flex this left foot. So we're bringing your toes on this left side back towards the side of your mat, maybe towards your knee. Hands are still behind our right leg, drawing our knees in closer to our chest. And again, we might feel like we've got a nice stretch through our glutes, our hips, maybe your thighs, maybe your lower back. Maybe you've got more space this side than the other. And let's just move out of this now and come back up to seated. So the reason that we came into that stretch first, not only to a little warm up, but also to have a look at how we might want our pigeon to feel in the particular area that we're trying to focus on when we're doing our pigeon pose. So an alternative to pigeon, if you cannot come into it one day, if you just cannot come into it ever because your hips may not allow you to get there, you can do that. It's going to have the same benefits. It's still working into those hips and glutes and outer thigh areas, but it's not giving that extra added weight of gravity over the top of you, kind of pulling you down, because you've got a little bit more control. You're kind of using your arms as that lever to stretch to where you need to go to. So please do not think that pigeon is the be all and end all of hip stretches. It absolutely isn't, and there are alternatives. And if pigeon today or any other day is impossible for you, come back to that figure of four. And if that works and you can feel that stretch, stick with that for a little bit and maybe see another time if you can move into pigeon, or stay with that if it works for you. It's completely your call. Going back to our pigeon, what I do want you to do is grab like a block if you have one, or maybe a cushion or something that you can sit on in a moment as we come into it. So our pigeon, as I've said, is really focused on our hips, and we're going to start coming into it now. So moving ourselves onto all fours. It doesn't matter which way you face right now, as long as you can hear what we're doing. So it doesn't matter too much about this all fours position either, because our main aim from here is just to move into our pigeon pose. So we're going to draw our right knee forwards towards right wrist. Now, in this particular example, I'm not then going to move my ankle anywhere, but you might sometimes have a little bit of a shuffled ankle, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. But what I am going to do is send my left heel back. So maybe it comes just off your mat like mine, maybe you're good on your mat. And then lifting your hands closer towards you and bringing your chest slightly more upright. So my right heel, not that you can see it very well, I'll turn around in a moment, is pretty close to my hip. But what I do want you to see is that my hips are fairly square facing forwards. So I'm not kind of over here with my hips leaning completely one way. And I'm also not like way over onto the side, kind of twisting in the other direction. I'm fairly straight, or square if you like, towards the front of my mat. But if I wasn't, and maybe if you feel a little bit wonky, you can bring your block or your cushion and just pop it behind your bottom on this right side. Now that's lifting us up, and you can probably even see through me that even though my hips were fairly square at that moment, I'm actually kind of lifting and elevating it and giving a little bit more into this position from here. And it's going to ease some of that pressure off of getting our hips close to the ground, again, that gravity side, but it is going to enable me to move into the stretch a little bit more. So again, this might be accessible for you. You can move a block up high, it doesn't need to be on that low setting. See where you're at, see what's comfortable. And again, if a cushion works just as well for you, that is perfect. I'm going to bring this back down. Now, if I spin myself around, and I'm going to show you now where my ankle is close to my hip. So I'm still using this right leg, my right knee is forwards, and my ankle, we haven't really moved it yet, so it's pretty close to my hips, and I'm slightly leaned out at the moment, so apologies for that. This may be perfect. Again, if we're looking for that kind of square position, which is the one that we're going to get most from this pigeon pose in, then I may leave my ankle here because actually this feels good and I can stretch further into my pigeon. You might see, and we've done flows before, we've brought our leg further forwards, almost like we're squaring off this front of our shin as well. Now you can automatically see that my whole position has changed. I can no longer fully come round to the front because my hips are in a different position. It's much harder to have the flexibility to be here, and I absolutely do not have it. Today or most days, I'm going to be honest with you, that is too much for me. So I need to bring my ankle a bit further back. And then I can kind of reset into this position. Now for me, because of the flexibility that I have, I don't need to be all the way back here with my ankle kind of straight directly underneath my hip, my knee perfectly forwards. I'm going to be somewhere in between. So I've not got this straight line across my shin. It's still on a bit of a diagonal, it's on a bit of a slant, but I can kind of shuffle myself to a point where my hips are fairly straight, my hands are down on the mat, and I've got this lift through my chest without my heel being too close or too far away from me. So you need to shuffle and adjust, and this takes a little bit of playing around, a little bit of movement to find out where you need to be. And similarly with that block use, we might use it one day and then not another, or we might find today actually it really helps us and we should probably use it a little bit more if we can. So have a think about that, play around, be curious, and just have a little play with your body. From this point of our pigeon, our fingertips are down by our sides. We can take a deep breath in, lift through our chests, and then starting to lower your chest forwards. Now, this is where you start to really feel that big, big, big stretch, nice and juicy through your glutes. And maybe you just get to here, you kind of hover over your knee or your shin. Maybe you bring your forearms out in front of you. Maybe you've got another block. You want to rest your head down. Maybe you stretch your arms out. See where you're at. There's no right and wrong for where you need to go to, as long as you feel this stretch through your hips. And again, come back to that point that we were in with our figure of four and think about how that felt for you too. Now, we're not going to come and stay in this posture for too long today. So beginning to lift yourself back up, and then let's just shift to the other side. So sending your right leg back, left knee coming forward towards your left wrist, right leg extending a little bit further away from you. And again, we can either keep our heel close, we can shuffle it further forwards, we can bring this block in, pop it underneath our bottoms. For me personally, I have less room on my left hip, left side of my hips than I do on my right. So I actually need generally to find a little bit more height here through this side of my pigeon, and probably I'm not going to be able to bring my foot as far forwards. Now, there are just anatomical differences that we all have on each side of our hips that no amount of stretching are ever going to overcome. Naturally, you can stretch and get beyond different places, but sometimes it's never going to do that. I don't know. I've not had a big scan and can exactly identify where my bones start and end, but I just want to flag that it doesn't mean just because you stretch in something every day does not mean you're suddenly going to make it. It's like doing the split. For some people, that movement is just never going to be possible. For some people, it's possible from day one. It really depends on anatomy as much as it does stretching. Or not as much, I should say. A lot when it comes to stretching. So from this left side of our pigeon, I'm just moving that block out of the way so it's a little bit easier to talk it through. Hands are still down by our sides. Deep breath in. Exhale again, that fold forwards. So maybe you walk your hands further in front of you. Maybe you're stretching, extending fingertips away. You might find more or less room. If you're like me, it's a little bit less. If you have more space on your right side, it'll be a bit more. And just notice where you're at right now. Maybe stay here for a couple of deep breaths. And let's make our way back up to seated, wiggling ourselves back onto our mats. Now, I know this is short and sweet. We could talk about hip stretches and pigeons for a very long time, maybe the birds as well. Um, but I hope you've had a little bit more information about what you're trying to aim for in your pigeon, how you might be able to set it up so that it works well for you. And a quick reminder that our hips often hold a lot of emotional release. So sometimes if we haven't stretched there for a while or if we're particularly tense, it might come with a bit of like a, okay, I just realized there's a lot going on. That is absolutely okay. That is totally normal. Please just breathe with it at the time or do whatever you need to do to make you feel good afterwards. Like you may feel great, you may feel sad, you may feel kind of on the edge, unsure. All of these emotions are absolutely okay and perfect for where you're at that time. Take a moment and then go and do whatever you need to move from that space if you want to another, or to stay in that space if it feels good for you. Pigeon can often bring that out in us, so please don't worry if that happens. It is completely normal. And if you want to chat about any of that stuff, I am always up for it. So just give me a message on the WhatsApp group. For now, though, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your pigeons and any other stretches you're going to do today. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.